Welcome back to the art room. Mrs. Larrabee here. We have another local artist this week, but it's a little different than some of ours have been in the past. This week we're going to be looking at the indigenous tribe of the Chumash, who were known to inhabit our area from Malibu all the way up to Morro Bay. They lived along the coastline and inland here, and they were known as the Shell People because of how they did their trading. It's a really neat heritage that we get to live around, and I just wanted to highlight a little bit of their artwork. The Painted Caves is a historic state park here in our county. It's between us and Santa Barbara, so about 45 minutes south of us. Along the highway, you can stop and see the Painted Caves. This is just one small piece of the artwork that's inside the caves that we have from the indigenous Chumash people. This is dated back many years from present day, but there are some present day artists in our area that are descendants of the Chumash who continue on this form of artwork. I want to introduce you to one. His name is Mitchell Robles. He lives in Santa Barbara, and he used some of the images that he saw as he was documenting these different caves, different places around our state where rock art is what it's referred to, has been seen. And he, some of the history that he knows since he's descended from the Chumash Tribe, and he puts them into his contemporary, which means present day artwork. He uses a lot of bright colors, but he also uses a lot of the symbols and the shapes that we see. One of the things that's repeated in the caves, that's also repeated in Mr. Robles' artwork, is this circle. It's been called the Chumash Sun Circle. There's a couple of different interpretations of what it might mean, but it does appear in artwork in many different forms. So today we're going to observe from the Painted Cave some of these different circular forms that they have. We're going to sketch them out on paper. We're going to choose one. We're going to use the elements that we see from them to design one, and we're going to add an element of our own. So we're going to personalize this today. All right, so the supplies you'll need is paper, and crayons would be best for this. I know that some of us have colored pencils. If you happen to have crayons, you want to grab those for this, but you can always substitute colored pencils. Also, if you have oil pastels, this is a great project for the oil pastels because they show up so brightly. Optional to just white paper would be, if you have construction paper, maybe brown, or I'm just going to use a grocery bag today. I just simply cut out actually the back of the grocery bag, and I'm going to use that for my paper today. All right, so grab your paper, grab a coloring supply, and meet me back here. All right, so here we go. We have our paper. I cut this from a paper bag. You could also use like the little bags that you could carry your lunch in, like the brown bags for that. Just regular paper is fine too. First step, we need to add some texture to this paper. Remember that texture is one of our elements of art. Let's see if we can do them together. Line, shape, form, color, value, space, and texture. I think I remembered them all. Okay, so we're gonna add some texture to our picture. We're gonna do it by crinkling up our paper. Best art project ever, right? We get to mess our paper up. Crinkle it up pretty hard. It's gonna soften our paper a little too. And we're gonna open it back up. All right, and in nature, we tend to not see straight edges. This is something that's a little more man-made, not as organic, which means from the earth, something natural. So let's just pinch around the edges and rip these straight edges off. So we want to go all the way around our paper. Here's a little technique for ripping. If you never knew, you might need one. I pinch here so that I can kind of control where the rip goes so that when I pull, I don't rip straight across my paper. So notice that my hands are working along. They're moving with each other. All right, so we've softened our paper, kind of in a way that maybe a hide would be softened from a deer or an animal. Just gonna squeeze mine one more time. We've added a little texture by doing that. We've added an edge that's more organic or natural than those straight hard edges. We're going to add texture one other way. Grab a brown and either a white or a light tan crayon. we're going to simply go over the top of this. It's hitting these little bumps where our paper was folded. It's just going to add a little depth to our picture, a little more texture, because rocks aren't going to be solid, right? They have speckles of different colors in them. They're rough when you look at them. Well, some of them are smooth, but they definitely still have those variations of color. So now we're using value, the lightness or darkness of this color, to add interest to our artwork. I'm going to also do the same with the white, maybe not quite as much, but I'm going to make a dark and a lighter value of our color. You could also put your paper on cement. I went out and did this on a sidewalk, and it just added a little more of that rough texture to the back. All right, now that we have the basics, the background of our artwork ready, let's talk for just a minute and do some observing about some different circles. If you have a piece of scratch paper handy, I'm going to use just some more paper bag. Grab that, and you could use your crayon too. And let's just observe some of the different circles that we see in the Chumash painted rocks, and then we can choose which one we'd like to use for our artwork. All right, so we're going to do this repeated circle. It's been called, I've seen it called the sun circle. We don't know exactly what the interpretation is. Different people have speculated different things of what it means, but obviously it was prominent because it's repeated often in their artwork. So we're going to focus on the circles. So let's see, here's one, has a center, and then it has two rings around the center and this curved line running through it. One of the interpretations that I've seen for this artwork is that it was part of a calendar charting the stars or charting the seasons. So this one looks like it could, have this swoop charting the stars and how they move in orbit. A lot of them have this four-edged circle to them. So here's another. It has a small dot in the middle and two rings around the edge. And then it has this. We have our four seasons, if that is what it is. This is kind of interesting because it has these waves around the edges too. And these are colored in a little darker. Observe what colors you're seeing. This kind of this reddish brown. There's white, there's black, and there are some painted caves that have more colors than these, but that is the majority of what we're seeing on the painted caves that are local, that are closest to us. These caves are about 400 years old. They date them back to around the 1600s, and they've preserved this long, partly because they're covered, but also when the Native Americans made their paints and their colors, they mixed in some types of oil with it they found naturally occurring. And this made them a little weatherproof. So they've lasted and they've stayed vibrant as much as we can tell. It seems that they've stayed vibrant all these years. Okay, so we have this same kind of pattern, but there's also some where they've colored in some of these sections. Sketch along with me on a scratch sheet of paper. Kind of pick out some of these that seem most interesting to you. I see another one where instead of it being wavy lines, it's more jagged. So we have the circle, we have these two outer circles, that seems to be a theme. And then this one has, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it has 1, 2, 3, 4 lines going through it. And then inside each of these is a triangle. So we can do this all the way around. And then on the outside, there's also these jagged shapes, kind of triangle looking, as we go through. And these are all colored in. This would be colored in as well. And I'm just sketching really quickly. We're just kind of getting ideas right now. All right, and then let's see, what else do we see here? Well, we have the one that I liked that I ended up doing my artwork out of. I thought this was really neat. They have the circle, they have the 2 circles around. This one has the 6 lines going through it. It had this wavy edge to it, and then one side was also darkened in. So I took this basic structure from what I had observed in the picture, but I added some more things that I saw from it. So here's where you start to personalize it. Personalizing is something else we also see in the Chumash culture. They were also known for these beautiful baskets that they would weave. And they would have these certain patterns that they would put in. A lot of times these patterns were taught to the next generation, and they could even identify where a basket was from, what tribe, what family, what basket weaver made it, based on the pattern that they saw, which is really neat. So they even had a personalization to their patterns. So we're going to do that as we've taken some inspiration from what we've seen inside the painted caves for the base. We're going to start adding some details to personalize it. I took my ideas from the painted caves from some of the other symbols that were inside. So there's the black and white shapes and lines on the side. I added some black and white here because this is thought to maybe be a calendar of some sort, looking at how the seasons might change, how the stars change. I added some little dots to represent stars. So you're going to take your prepared background, choose one of these basic shapes that we've looked at and observed to get your background, to get it started. So I would start something like this. And then choose what kind you're going to make. Are you going to make something that's a little more toned down, not too much detail? Are you going to go into great detail? We're going to add waves or spikes and color it in. I look forward to seeing what you design in your Chumash Painted Cave artwork.